If you enjoy Gaeilge Weekly, want to begin feeling truly confident speaking and using the Irish language, don't forget to become a Learn Irish Online member today. I'm not going to bore you with the details of it. The membership contains so much that we'd probably be here all day. What I am going to say is head over to patreon.com/Learn Irish Online and sign up for a free trial today. If it's not for you, you can cancel anytime, but last year 92% of all signups continued past their free trial because it immediately helped them with their confidence as Gaeilge. How? By getting them using the language from day one and not just teaching token phrases or outdated proverbs. So sign up today at patreon.com/Learn Irish Online or on the Patreon app to start speaking real Irish with real confidence. Hi folks, Gaeilge, welcome back to the show. Fáilte rás chuig Gaeilge Weekly. As always, a big thank you for tuning in. Mars Chanach, míle buíochas as tiúnal isteach. And once again, this week, a rís eile an teachtain seo, going to be focusing in on a story, or this week, a person, so scéal éigean, nó an teachtain seo, duine éigean from Irish history, ó stair na hÉireann. I'm not talking about the Taoiseachs or Michael Collins or different people who were very famous. Ní bhaid méid lárts faoin na Taoiseach, no Michael Collins, no daoine difriúla bhí anna cháúil, but people a bit more obscure and people you probably don't know about. Daoine nó duine an teachtain seo, seans má nach bhfuil aithne agat ar an duine seo. So, if I ask you to think about Irish sporting heroes, dá mé fá ag smaoinú faoi léithrí sport na hÉireann and people who achieved a huge amount in the world of sport. Daoine a bhain a lán rudaí agus a lán éachtaí amach is saoil an sport. Who would you think of? Cén daoine a bheith fá ag smaoinú fuhu? Roy Keane? Perhaps Sonia O'Sullivan, Brian O'Driscoll, Katie Taylor, John Giles, George Best. But what about someone called Patrick O'Connell? Céard faoi duine éigean darbhanan Patrick O'Connell. What if I told you that over the course of about 70 years, he was a seachtó bliain, Patrick O'Connell was the captain of Manchester United, bhí sé na captain Mancán Aontaithe. He worked in a munitions factory for the Brits during one of the world wars. D'oibrigh sé I monarcha munitions thus na Bhratanig I gceann de na Cogaí Domhanda. He left his wife and full family without any notice to go to Spain and lived there for decades. D'ág sé a bhean chéile agus a chláán chun dul go dtí an Spáin agus a bheith ina chónaí agus a bheith gobar an sin fan na blianta. He won Real Betis' only ever La Liga title as manager. Bhuaigh sé Teadzéil La Liga, which is the main league in Spain, on Phríomhstra an sa Spáin. And I'm only a few kilometres away today from the Real Betis Stadium. Ní má cúpla kilometre ón stád Real Betis, since they're based here in Seville, agus siad san bunaithe an sa I Seville. He won what still to this day is their only ever La Liga title. Bhuaigh sé fós go dtí an lá seo an tain Teadzéil La Liga a bhuaigh siad. He went to Barcelona and was part of a mission that practically saved the club from going out of existence. Bhuaigh sé go Barcelona agus bhí sé mar chuid de mission nó plan chun an club a hábháil, and if it wasn't for that, Barcelona might not even be around today as a club. Muna méach sé mar gheallar sin seans má nach méach Barcelona an seo mar club na leitheantí seo. And he stayed there during the Civil War despite repeated chances to leave. Don sin I ré an chugad cathartha cé go raibh neart seansanna aige chun dul arás go éire nó sasanna. But at the end of his life, he died in an unmarked grave, or was left in an unmarked grave, curl in Uí gan éon marcáil é in London, with a life of poverty and sickness. Let's say a tháinig chuigean deire le neart bochtanas agus tinnis. Well, that may sound like something from a fiction novel or something from a comic book. Seans má bhfuil cuma sin go raibh sé mar rud éigean ó leabhar fiction nó leabhar comic, but that was the life that Patrick O'Connell, born in 1887, had. Sin an sail a bhí ag Patrick O'Connell lad rugu sa bhlín 1887, and yet very, very, very few Irish people know anything about him. More on Olas Agéine in Éireann faoi Patrick O'Connell and the life that he had on sail of Viega. So that's what I'm going to speak about today. Sin a rud a bhfuil mé chun labhart faoi inniu. As I always say before these stories, I am not a historian, ní starry mé hain. I've made every single effort and put a lot of time in. Tá gach iarracht déanta agam agus tá lán ama curthas teach agam to make sure everything in this podcast and all the details and dates are correct. Gúil na sunraí agus na dátaí gúil siad céad fan géad ceart. If there's one or two things that are slightly out of place or aren't 100% confirmed, I apologise. Tá brónarm má tá rud nó go agus níl siad céad fan géad cínte, but I'm fairly sure tá misách cínte that all this information is correct. Various sources, trustworthy sources, and all the usual process on gná fróséis agus foiointí de friúla agus foiointí cearta. So, the start of Patrick O'Connell's life was in Dublin in 1887 in Lá Clia in 1887, and while he was growing up, after finishing his education, threis a chuid idicus a chreitnú, which, as always, at that time was quite early. Wasn't like nowadays where people were staying in education till 22, 23, 24, 52, 53, 54. When he was 14 years old, he was already working in Boland's Mill. Hanna féin bhí sé gulpur I Boland's Mill in Mallia á Clia agus sesin Cera Blina Dig Dish at the age of 14. Obviously, Dublin at that time was a very different place from what it is today. Ar nóí bhí baile thug clia an sa friúil mar áit na léithintí sin I gcompráid le inniu. Anyone who's read a play or a book like The Plough and the Stars in the Lawer no play cosú le Plough and the Stars late sa acu, you guys will know by isagavsha about the tenements and the real poverty that there was there at the time. And buchtanas viawan iganam shin. And of course, Ireland was still part of the UK, didn't have its independence or its freedom. Visa fós mar chuid sin ríocht daintia, ní rá sigarsha, ega, ní rá navsblockus, ega noin rud mar sin. So very different time. And alongside working as a foreman in Boland's Mill at the turn of the century, ag dzera on níu íste agus tús on fihu ish at the start of the 20th century, he was also playing a lot of football and was very talented as a footballer. But fellador in sco a Patrick O'Connell. And at the end of his teens, he moved up to Belfast, ag dzera o Guadama in a dégri hui sé hús go Béal Versta, and signed his first professional contract. He ní sé a chéad cunra profisiúnta no Garamúl in Belfast, in Béal Versta with Belfast Celtic. A few years later, like as the case is still nowadays, mar tá sé fós na léithintí seo, if you're in Ireland and you're good enough, you head across to England and you get picked up by a club, mar tá sé fós na léithintí seo, sin líon clubanna ó hasanna, the lads in Éireann má tá siad chomh maith sin agus má tá an skill sin acu if they have that skill. So in 1909, he headed across the Irish Sea and joined Sheffield Wednesday. Ní teige sa ní, hui sé trasna an áracha go Sheffield, and a very historical and famous club in England still to this day. Club on a starúil agus on a callúil asasna fóscatí an lá seo, and they paid £50, not 50,000, not 50 million, but £50 each sheet quaig punt as Patrick O'Connell agus lad ella, another lad by the name of Peter Warren, Darvan Peter Warren. So 1909, he's across in England. This is before the World War, and he's playing for Sheffield. He heads to Hull City for a while, saying go Hull City or for Tamil, and then he signs in 1914 with the Red Devils Manchester United. So Tain Seg Manchester United in Need Seg Carriage. Now, Manchester United aren't quite the powerhouse that they would go on to be, but they're still up there in the top division, Division 1, what is nowadays the Premier League. So tá siad fós an sin rion na hain, an rion na town, mar an Premier League na léithintí seo. But World War I starts. Tá sníon an chéad cogad damda. So as the 1914-15 season is coming to an end, they know it's probably going to be the last season for a while. Seans má go mbeidh sé so mar an séisre dearnach fa Tamil. And in the last game of the season, there's huge controversy. Tá cunspóds an a war sa chluichead Éireannach an séasúr sin. Manchester United are playing Liverpool, and there's match fixing that goes on. They know they're not going to have contracts or be playing for the next while. Again, Manchester United need a win to stay up, and there's huge money placed on 2-0 as the specific result. Curú a lán airgid síos dó a nod mar thurú an chluiche sin, and several players are banned for life afterwards because it comes out that there's match fixing. So curú cusc neart imri ó immerts a ríis tar éis an chluiche seo mar tagann sé amach gur match fixing ann. And Patrick O'Connell isn't found guilty. He's the captain of United at this point. Tá sé mar hapdain na fearna ag an buinte seo. And it's, again, brings us to our first one of the rumours or things we're not sure about in this piece and in this story. An chéad ráfla agus an chéad rud nach féidirlinn a bheith cinnte faoi sa scéal seo. Because during that game, Patrick O'Connell has a penalty kick and he hits it into row Z. He misses by a mile. So tá kick pín ó seige agus níl sé fiú congrach dó é a scóráil. It goes way over. Saying say her on Traslan and way out over the goal and misses by a mile. But he's not found guilty. So a lot of people think he knew and he was trying to miss on purpose. Grau is agus fi sé déanúireacht the aon thurs gone on kick pinos seo a scóráil. But anyway, he's not found guilty. He's allowed to continue playing, but there's not many options for him because World War I is on. Football has stopped. Cur stop leis on soccer. And during World War I, again, not like nowadays where there's huge money in soccer, níl a lán airgid sa soccer na leitheann sin. He has to go find work. So what do you do during a world war if you're not going out fighting? On the Battle of the Somme or whatever else across Europe, Simple na Europa, he goes working in a munitions factory, a Monaghan Munitions in England. A very side note, during his time there, he was working alongside his brother, Vise Gulper in Aka Lena Derhor. Maybe it was even his brother who got him the job, Chance Grouse at Derhor, a war on Posto when football stopped, nor a hánig stop leis on soccer. But the brother, Larry was his name, Larry on Talm of the year, seemed to be a very interesting character. One of the sources I found described him as a superb part-time opera singer, a fanatical Catholic and a fanatical womanizer, as well as a civil servant who successfully sued the British government for discriminating against him for being Irish. So, fair to say, episode on Larry O'Connell might be just as interesting. Cínta cumaic EAGRÁN Larry O'Connell simul as this one about Patrick mar an ceann sa faoi Patrick. But that's a story for another day. Sin scéal lá ella. And as the war comes to an end, things get a bit tough for Patrick. Tá sé soch Zachar the Patrick ag deireadh an scéal. So as a side note, of course, there was conflicts in Ireland, a huge conflicts in Ireland during these years as well. And one of the other rumours that's not confirmed, ceannt in a ráflaí ella agus níl sé seo deimhnithe ar cur a bit, but several sources mention it, that there is a belief that at this point he may have been bringing some of the materials from the munitions factory, Seans Graushake Thorts, Nearts and Hackfunny on Monaghan Munitions across to Ireland and basically getting them back to the leaders of the Rising and then the War of Independence afterwards. The Ire Mach na Cásca agus Inia sin an Cugga a bhí idir éire agus Sasana in Ireland at that time in Éireann ag an sin. And that is mentioned in several sources. But the next thing we know for sure is that the war ends, so tagan zera leis an gogu. But at this point, Patrick O'Connell is 31, 32. He can't get a club down south in England. Níl sé an club all. He's Sasana. And so he heads up to Scotland, plays for one or two small clubs in Scotland in the northeast of England. Change hús go Albin agus tá sé gimmert an sin le club nóho níos lú in Albin agus or Hushgart Hasana. But the next big thing in his life really is the football career never comes back to him or never takes off again. Níl aon rud on a war in a gharam mar fellador. In 1922, he says, I'm gone. and I'm not even going to tell my wife or kids or anything like that. Níl mé Hulnain Rud instance the van chéile no the fáistí is about 4 children at this point of Cahar fáistí ega ag an buinte seo. So he gets on the boat and heads down to Spain. The wife and the kids have no idea where he is. Níl aon clue ag na páistí no ag an van chéile cén áit bhfuil sé, but the only correspondence between Patrick O'Connell and his family for the next few decades, na blianta os a chóir an taint sagwal, the only contact idir an dá grúpa, idir Patrick agus a chláin is Spanish pesetas, the money in Spain, agad na Spáine, being sent back seolta arás in the post sa fóst. And that was all there was. So why does he go off in 1922 to Spain? Cén fá a haon sé hálgadí an Spáin in níd fiche dó? Well, I'm going to answer that in just a second, but if you're not listening on Patreon, you're going to hear a slight insert here just to remind you, if you want way more like this podcast and early access and bonus episodes Gaeilge Weekly alongside all the episodes of Léiris, H3, Smuinty Saharn, Egastru, and expert guidance in how to find serious confidence in actually speaking real Irish every day and understanding it, reading it and writing it, the best place to do it is over on the Learn Irish Online membership. You can sign up for a free trial today, check it out for a week, and finally take the serious step you want towards feeling properly confident in speaking the language. Patreon.com/Learn Irish Online. That's Patreon.com/Learn Irish Online. Now, back to Patrick O'Connell. Táin sé an sin chun bheith in a bhainistúir to be a manager at Racing Santander, a club in Santander, of course, in the north of Spain. Club is Santander, who's i dúsgart na Spáine. Now, I've no idea how he got this job. Níl clám cín chuí a fórsaí an posteo, what connection he had in any way. Cín buint a bhí ag arrangedly, and there's very little info online again about his life in general outside of the kind of main facts or main times that I'm telling you. So we can't be sure of these things. Ní féidir lena bheith cínsa faoi na rudaí seo. But he's manager of Racing Santander from 1922 to 1929, presumably with no Spanish for the first year or two. Is dócha nach more on Spanish ag no gan Spanish don chéad bhliain no go, and very little English. Certainly the players would have had at that time. Ní bheadh more on béarla ag na himmerí ag an am sin. But he has a great 7 years at Santander. There's no La Liga at this point. That actually is set up right at the end of his time at Santander. So Tosnian La Liga, which is basically the Premier League of Spain, sin an Premier League ach sa Spáin, the National League an start náisiúnta atá acu an seo. That starts in 1928, right at the end of his time with Racing Santander. So they're playing in regional leagues, tá the Gimmert an sin as regional leagues, Strahanna, Regionacha, and they have great success. They win about 4 of them during his time there. Buan Seed Hart there, Hurricane, Iri, Ohuidjam an sin. And 1929, he heads to Real Oviedo for 2 years. Oviedo, another city up there in the north of Spain, Cahir Ella Hús and sin, I dúsgart na Spáine. I remember doing the Camino a few years ago, and it was about 1 week walking in between Santander and Oviedo near South Béidir. Seachtan one, Egsúl, idir Santander agus Oviedo. So it was maybe hour and a half on the train. Béidir or chlig or gale an strain, so very close beside each other. But it was the big move in 1932 when he came down south in Nídseg Trucadó, nor hánig sé ansa ó Cheas to Seville, the place where I am sitting today. On áit bhfuil mise imachóní inne, and as I look out to the street below me from my window, agus mise ag féchan samach an stráds ó ma inneog. There's every chance Patrick O'Connell might have walked through these streets, or certainly nearby at some point about 80 years ago or 90 years ago, even at this point, Octo Blino hin, no few nócha Blino hin ag an buinte seo. He was 3 years in Seville managing Real Betis, who are still one of the 2 main clubs here in the city. Agus tá siad san fós na léithantí seo mar cheann den dá club níos mó sa chathair. There's Sevilla and there's Real Betis. So Real Betis playing green and white. People may have seen the jerseys about since they're quite hipster nowadays. Chance ma goal na ganzi have feicia ag daoine Marial goal siad sock hipster na léithantí seo. And during those 3 years, he achieved something that still has never been done again. Bhuin sé rud ag an amach fós nach bhfuil déanta ag aine ó hin, and that is to win a La Liga, a Spanish national title, an Sra Náisiúnta an Seos Spáin, and he won it in 1935. Bhuaigh sé agus bhuaigh Betis an Sra Níd ag Trucha Cúig. And if I go out on the street right now below me and ask any Betigo, any Betis fan there is on the street, má churm ceist ein Betigo, ein duine a bhí ag leanann réal Betis. In what year did Betis win their one league title? All the people here will tell you 1935, Níd ag Trucha Cúig. Another unconfirmed story, scéal eile nachhfuil deimhnithe, another kind of rumour, but again it is mentioned in several sources. Louis are a gúpla foinsa sa friúil, and that is that they played Santander. This is confirmed. They played Santander in the last match of the league, which is O'Connell's old team. So bhí siad immerts in Santander sa chluiche deireanach sa Sra, and they needed to win. Real Madrid were playing against someone else, and it was between Madrid and Betis for the league. Bhí siad Real Madrid agus Betis done Sra. And apparently the night before, Patrick O'Connell went into wherever the Santander guys were training or wherever they were staying, payouts around the lads of Santander ag fánacht, no ag trainal, and he said, lads, you know, there's nothing on the line for you guys tomorrow. Níl aon ruth tábhacht tíobh seo mórach. And again, maybe thinking back to the United-Liverpool game in 1915, beidir smuoine rascatí an clutha idir Liverpool agus United in Níd ag Cúig, and he said, take it easy on us. Take it easy on us tomorrow. Tóga bogé orin amórach. And well, in the end, they did win 5-0 bhuaigh a Cúig an áid. So perhaps that did happen. Again, we cannot be sure. Ní féidir lena bheith cinnte ráfla atá ann. It is a rumour, but it is mentioned in several different pieces or several different sources. Gúpla foinsa difriúil. Another interesting thing that happens during these years in Seville, rud ag an eile a Harlíonn uirith na blianta seo is Seville, is that, of course, he's left his wife at this point. Dog sé a bhean ag an buinte seo, is just sending back some pesetas now and again. Anis ríis tá sé ag seoladh ras pesetas chuig Sasana. But what happens on Rud a Harlíonn is that he meets another woman here in Spain. She's Irish, éireannach atá insi. She has the exact same name as his first wife. Tá dearc an tanam céine eici mar a chéad van céile, and apparently she looks extremely similar as well. Tá sais an cuma céine orthaí cuma. Now they are two different women, that's 100% confirmed. So Bert's rá go chumlan tir friúil atá iontu agus tá sé sin deimhnithe. But it's amazing because even nowadays in Seville there are very few Irish people living here. Na léithintí seo is Seville, níl mór an éireannig ina gcónaí an seo thurbe. So I can't imagine 90 years ago, no chablino hin, before the EU, riv an taintas orpach, before globalization, riv globalization agus an Erasmus program, agus gach rud eile, to find another Irish woman here by itself is extraordinary. Tá sé duchredsa hun ban éireannach eile a aimsú an seo. But I guess then they would have been in the same situation, very few Irish people here, so they probably would have made the effort to find each other and meet each other. Seans ma gnéintach siad an éireacht hun casú le céile, because there were so few of them here. Marial nach ra mór an acu an seo. So 1935, Barcelona are looking at this. What's going on? This crazy Irish guy down in Seville, an éireannach crackáilte seo hís is Seville. Seems like he's doing an amazing job. And just like, again, they would nowadays, if there was a manager doing a good job with a smaller team, they'll make Banastor ag déanú job ma le club níos lú. They say, right, we'll have him, we'll get him up. So the president of the Barcelona Football Club, and that is Barca, the famous Barca, Messi, Iniesta, Xavi, and all that, on Barca callú le Messi, Xavi, Iniesta, that we all know and love or hate today. On club óil aithne agin gléir na léithintí seo. The president of that club, an túchtarán an club sin, Josep Sunyol, who is a committed Catalan independent activist and all the rest of it, he gets Patrick O'Connell to come up to Barcelona. Déanann sé cinnte go dagan Patrick O'Connell hús go Barcelona to be the manager of the team. Chun a bheith ina bhainteoir ag an club. But Patrick O'Connell, in terms of being in different places with wars going on, cannot catch a break. Ní féidir leis fú beagnaín á a all I réit na bliantí seo madra leis na cogaí. Because in 1936, the Spanish Civil War breaks out. Thus níon an cogad cathartha sa Spáin in níd ag trocasé. And Barcelona is one of the epicenters of the war as the Catalans fight against the Franco forces. Agus na daoine ó Catalunya ag trid in ai Franco agus muintir an Franco. So what happens is about 6 months or a year into his time at Barcelona as manager, tíbhaiste de séhí nó bliain, tíbhaiste den na chuid zama ag Barcelona mar Patrick is back in Ireland on holidays. Tá sé ras in Éireann léithin this era, maybe trying to keep his head down in case he sees his wife, his first wife, I should say. Beidir ag déanúir tun ó chean a chuineáil síos in Atzis Gaeilge say a chéad van Céile, but he receives a telegram to let him know that Josep Sunyal, the Barcelona president, EAGRÁN Barcelona, gur dún war that he was murdered. He was murdered by Francoist forces and those who were fighting for fascism, essentially, and fighting for Spanish unity and to keep Spain together at that time. They killed Josep Sunyal. So dún worry siad Josep Sunyal. And Patrick receives a telegram saying, listen, we understand, so find a telegram agus Jaren, listen, Tegan much, if you don't want to come back, you know, it's a mess here. The place, people are seeking asylum, the president's dead, Todini agree asylum all in France or wherever else, so rank no in tella, Ton Tukdran Marv, we completely understand if you don't want to come back. Tegan much, Kate Fungade, Mono will to agiri chocht arash. But what does Patrick do? Patrick comes back. Cod a yin and Patrick Tagan say arash. And she stays at the club and continues managing them. Pretty quickly, La Liga comes to an end and is suspended due to the war. So Tagan Zera Wig La Liga Mayoral an Gogu Tamil, and Patrick is now left to manage Barcelona, but in regional competitions. So in competitions occurring Nice Lou, for example, the Mediterranean Cup, Marhampla on Mediterranean Cup, which he actually wins. But there's bigger issues here going on, not just the war. Tá rudí níos mó siúlagus, fiban a níos mó, ní amháin an cogad. But the issue for Patrick, and for Barcelona more so, on Ibe, like Patrick, agus níos mó like Barcelona, is the club is in huge problems with money. Tá alán fiban ag Barcelona modulation target. Of course, the war certainly doesn't help, and there's big mismanagement, and they barely have enough money to keep going. Ní charíonn an cogad leis seo agus níl an target nó éireagan nach bhfuil an target acu chun leanúint. Alright, the mighty Barcelona were on the edge of extinction. So what do? They get invited to go on a tour of Mexico. So find siad cura chun dul chamcourts in Mexico. Now, why Mexico, or why were the Mexicans so happy to kind of have the Catalans over Kinfa around the Mexicani Kovsasta on the Catalans of Aku agus on Carulo? Well, because they had a socialist government at the time, vi realta socialíoch Aku eganam. They had great sympathy and kind of positive feeling vi mochan dearfach Aku towards the Catalan cause and against the Franco cause. Whig cadaví shul Catalunya agus anai Franco. So they do this tour like a team would do a pre-season tour nowadays, and it's extremely successful and it saves the club. So tá sé an club a hábhal because of the money they raise. Marial an airgad bhfuil siad an bailú. They raise about £15,000 or the equivalent in pesetas or pesos at that time. So bailíonn siad thart ar 2,000 jeg or 2,000 punt jeg ag an am. No, on maids céine pesetas, no pesos, Hall of Mexico, whatever the amount would have been. And that's a huge amount of money at the time. Sin alán arrogance eganam, and it's actually enough for Barca to keep going. And of course, they go on to be the extremely successful club they are today. Lanan Sidrai Hundavet Maran Club on a Rahul Will Seed Nalehindi Show. But an issue occurs while in Mexico when they're going back is that a lot of the players don't want to go back. Allant in Himmery Neil Sidigiri Dalrash. So they stay in Mexico and seek asylum, or a lot of them head to France on the boat back. Teen Sid Gudian Rank or Madarash, and again do not want to go back to Barcelona or Catalonia, which is on fire. Metaphorically at this time, it's in I'm sure a lot of places physically on fire as well. Keensa growth tinsel of heckle in law not the physical kovma because it was receiving the brunt of Franco's anger. We say extracles ag fullings we smacked Franco. So Patrick O'Connell again has a chance, kind of an easy get out of jail for free card here, and he's helped the club. He's gone to the tour. Tá sé treis, imacht on an home court, agus tá sé treis carú leis an club. But he decides, no, I'm going to go back. Tá Michel and Dularash. So he goes back again. I think they win the Mediterranean Cup around this time, and shortly after he does eventually leave Barcelona. Bugnin in Yeshin, Fogan say Barcelona, and thankfully the Spanish Civil War ends in 1939. Cretan on Kugu and Nidzeg Trocani, but of course Franco was still there until the 70s. As a little side note, Tá Franco Fos on Shin could see Nshakdoji. So the next few years aren't quite as exciting. He manages a lot of the clubs he managed. He just managed them again. Alon's in a club in a Roushe in a store. On club, just change their ass. Wig the club in the Cana or He goes back to the same clubs. Again, he manages Betis again, manages Sevilla, actually the main rivals of Betis. So change goes Sevilla or for Tamil. He heads back to Santander for 2 years from 1947 to 1949. Change their ass goes Santander or for Rovli, needs a Carca shocked, go needs a Carcani, but never really achieves the same success. Ni wouldn't say a mock on Raw, Cana, Irit na Blinty show. And that job at Santander, which ends in 1949, turns out to be his last job in the sport. So needs a Carcani, Egg Santander, Shin an or Yeranach arouse mar Vanastor sa sport. But something also very interesting happens in 1955. So Patrick is still living in Seville. Tá session fós in Choni is Seville. One very interesting line actually from, again, one of the sources Chiantin of Fuinchi I found while doing research for this podcast, agus Misha Etienne Taidza done Fodcrela show, was someone from here who knew a lot about the story and actually knew Patrick at the time said, I think he found a second home here. He used to say that he loves Seville because the people here live like it is their last day on earth. And I can promise you, Gallamditch, 90 years later, it's still the case here in Seville. Gandaus na blinta an is nócha blin to réis Patrick O'Connell and so it is still very much like that. Tá sé fós mar an géana agus tá sé fós cosúla sin. So I can 100% see where Patrick was coming from with that comment. Gan laut tá mé an eicil as céanát ar Patrick ag tacht madra leis an stráchtaracht sin. But Spain one night are playing in Dublin, the Spanish national team. So, for na Spáine, for náisiúnta na Spáine, tá si gimmert I Maliocha Clia, Ihe Owan, and Dan O'Connell, who was one of Patrick's sons. So Dan O'Connell agus sin mock Patrick from the first relationship on Chéad Caidir of Viega in England when he was playing with United, agus Session ag Emersley United. Dan O'Connell is on a mission. He goes in to the bar where the Spaniards are drinking afterwards, change his stock, gajin tacht Torvina, in a will na Spánig a goal in a year, and he says, do you guys know someone called Patrick O'Connell? And well, Atna Agavsha lad Darvan Patrick O'Connell, and they say, of course. They say, claro que sí. They say, of course, or no, we know him. And he's very famous in Spain. Tá sé an chalul sa Spain. Brilliant manager. He won the league with Betis. Did he not hear that? Vui sé an stra le Betis. Nach bhfuil sé sin cloist ad. I am paraphrasing, of course, whatever the Spaniards might have said that night. But they know me. They say, head to Seville. You'll find them. Take a Seville, bite to an on a Imshoe. So Dan O'Connell heads on a trip through Ireland, down on the boat, or maybe across through England, down on the boat to Spain. And even when he gets to Spain, he's only halfway there. A few ner frickin' sé in Spain, Nilchak la falach on tro on so, because it's a long time. Even nowadays, it would take you 6 or 7 hours on the train to go from the north of Spain to Seville, or Hushkart in Spain, go Seville. But he gets here in the end and he meets his father. So Shrekan sé Seville, agus Cassan sé Lena Aher. But it doesn't really go that well. Ni hain say Kovma Shin. Why not? Kin fought. Well, firstly, of course, Patrick feels a bit uncomfortable. He doesn't want anything to do with his old family. Níl sé giri ein buint, no níl sé giri zéilal na le chéad chlán. And as much as, you know, it's understandable, I guess, because it would be an awkward position to be in. It is very much one he's created at this point. Seo Cosno, seo situation atá crochia ega ag an buinte seo has kind of come back to bite him. So during their time together in Seville, I ri a chuid zama an seo Seville over the course of a few days or up to a week by the accounts of most sources, cúpla lá no beidir seachtain dar leis an gcuid mó to na fointi ar an mise ag léamh that I was reading. He refers to him constantly when he sees people he knows as "this is my nephew." Dearan sé go minic nuair ecan sé daoine ó bhfuil aithne aige orthú. This is my nephew, not my son. Shut mania, ní mawak, of course, not to alarm people that know that the second wife in Seville, gan stocha in fatsi snogla a chur na daoine ó bhfuil aithne ag an Dara van Gaeilge. This, of course, upsets Dan, and Patrick doesn't allow Dan to come to his house or anything like that. Ní thugann sé cead, nó ní ligean sé de Dan chun seacht chuig a theach. They have to meet in the park and where nobody is going to see them. Caiisiad búla le chéile sa fork. Áit ag an aquilania chun iad a eáil. And it doesn't go that well. Ní héin sé an bháin Dan returns to Ireland. So filling Dan arás Éireann. And again, not sure because there's only a certain amount of info we have. Ní féidir lena bheith cínstear mar níl an tólas ar fád á cín, but likely the last time they ever saw each other. Seans má grabh sé sin mar an or dhearannach nó an ócáid dhearannach a chonaic Dan áthar. Because towards the end of the 50s, Patrick becomes a bit more sick. He's not got a huge amount of money or anything. Níl alán airgid aige, whether it's he never earned it in his contracts, beidir nach raibh sé tiltte aige leis na conraí a bhí aige. Maybe it's that he lost it or didn't use it too wisely or didn't save it. Beidir ní raibh sé sábháil an target, beidir gur chail sé an target and spending on things he shouldn't have been spending on. I don't know, Níl Sam. But he heads back to England, change rash Gosastana. He lives with his brother for the last little bit of his life. Tá sé in the Honey Lenin Trehor, don Chuid Sternach, Dá Hale, and he dies of pneumonia in 1959. Finds sé bás le pneumonia in Nídeg Cuige Ní. It was, of course, a sad end for him, Arnoi Fisimar Zera on a Vronach, though, and really, in some ways, kind of got worse as the years went by. It chlívis if unis massa in the blinta, because as I read out all those achievements and all those things, and of course he was not an angel and clearly not the best family man, or no ní raibh sé mar angel ar churbe agus ní raibh sé mar athair an a bhá nó inúirt mar sin. So this isn't a huge, condoning of everything he did, níl mé gra grasíntach gach rud a rinne sé, but there's very few Irish people or Irish kind of soccer stars during the years who achieved as much as O'Connell did, and in different countries as well, in Áitsin Friúla at a time where it was so hard to be living abroad, and way harder than it is nowadays. Bhfad níos deachar ná tá sé na léithintí seo. And yes, throughout the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 90s, no one in Ireland really spoke about him. I mean, still very few people know about him. Few na léithintí seo níl is ag mór an daoine faoi Patrick O'Connell and the amazing story he had agus an scéal do chreidsa a bhí aige. But thankfully, around 2017, 2018, as Patrick O'Connell had been forgotten by so much of the world, agus dearmid déanta ag cuid's wards in down Patrick O'Connell, the Patrick O'Connell Memorial Fund was set up. So Tosio on Patrick O'Connell Memorial Fund. And they decided to raise money to give Patrick O'Connell a bit more of a profile. Firstly, give him a proper grave, as he was put in an unmarked grave originally in London. So Curru Inui gan mark all the London ag Zera na Cuige. So they managed to raise, I think it's about £10,000 or something like that, better jet meal a punt na Rudagan Marshin. And they managed to do that for him. They also, here in the Betty Stadium in Seville, only about 3 or 4 kilometres away from where I'm recording today, Neil South Better 3 no Hera kilometre on out will Misha ag tafadu, and they got a bronze bust of his head to put in the museum to again show the only manager who's ever won the league with Betty, Santain Vanistor Hun La Liga a Vulcanch Le Betis. There was a mural done of him up in Belfast on the Falls Road, or Woher na Wall, who's Emil Fershna. Renew mural though, because that's where he lived when he was up there. sin nát ará sé ina chonaí agus sesin hús an sin. And there was a plaque put outside of the house where he lived or grew up in Dublin. Plaque beag tíomhmha den áit ina rá sé nó den teach ina rá sé ina chonaí agus sesin ag fásadh aníos I Mbaile á Clia. There's also one or two little documentaries done about him, and thankfully, again, one of the great things of the internet ceantain or the intacha Fuinidjalín is that so much information, again, can be put up online and podcast on about him, so people can find out about this for years to come by daoine an scéal sa all, agus níos mó ólais a bhaint amach maidir leis an scéal seo ar fa na blianta. And that's one of the reasons I want to do this podcast today. Sin ceant and fána around me géirí an pudchréile seo a dhéanamh inniu. There can't be a long list of people who are Irish and have lived in Barcelona and Seville. Cínta nach bhfuil list of fada de daoine éannig a bhí ina gcónaí I Seville agus comála sin I Barcelona. And as one of the few, I thought maybe it would be nice to do a little tribute to one of the few who was here before. Beidir make sé go deas chun almost a dhéana dá cheantain lads eile ará sa chás céine, earthly, who was in the same situation in a way, of course very different in other ways. But I was amazed when I started looking into the story. Bhí íana anmhór ormsa nar thosaigh mé ag féchant ar an scéal seo and thinking, how do more people not know about this? Cén chuí nach bhfuil níos mó aithne ag daoine ar an scéal seo. But sometimes in history, the forgotten figures are just as interesting as the people we all know and love. Orintha, maidir leis an star, na daoine bhfuil dearmid déanta acu, tá siad sin cósimú mar na daoine anna cháú agus na daoine bhfuil clú agus cálarthú timpeall an down. So, that's the end of the podcast this week. Sin deire an fudchréile an teachtain seo. I hope you enjoyed. Tásúil am gurban tú taitneamh. And don't forget, if you want way more like this, to sign up as a Learn Irish Online member and start taking serious steps towards speaking and understanding the language properly and to a good level. Chat to you next week. Le live an teachtain seogan. Goodbye and God bless. Slán agus beannacht.